Hello, fellow students. Today we are going to talk about first principles. So first, the formula. This is the formula for the first principle. It looks a bit daunting, but it's actually not that complicated. So the left-hand side is just a derivative function. It's the derivative you want to find. And the right-hand side, this f of x is the function that the question gives you. And for this f of x plus h, you just need to substitute all the x in f of x with x plus h. So for example, if the question gives you f of x equals to square root of x, then your f of x plus h will just simply be square root of x plus h. And then this h on the denominator is just a thing here to annoy you. And the goal is to try to cancel the h in the denominator and then substitute h equals 0 into the expression, basically into the numerator above. And then you can cancel out all the h because they are all zeros. And then you are left with your derivative function. So these are the general steps for the first principle questions. First one is you need to do something to f of x plus h so that you can expand it. And then you need to expand it into this specific form. F of x, your original function, plus h times another function, g of x and h. So this general function here will include both x and h. Why you are going to do that? Because then you can basically cancel out this f of x and this minus f of x here. So your original function is basically gone. And then you cancel out this h and this h here. Because h is not equal to 0, you can safely cancel them out. And after you do that, there will be no 0-like terms on the denominator. So you can safely substituting h approach to 0, and then your derivative will just be this g of x, because this h here is gone. And as to how to expand the f of x plus h, there are some useful techniques that you should know. The first one is binomial expansion. So if you see x plus h squared, then you can basically expand it like this way. You expand it into x squared plus 2 times xh plus h squared. This is just the standard binomial expansion for square. And you can also do it for cube. The formula is out here. You can just copy this down into your help notes. And next one is difference between squares. So this again tells you that if you have a minus b times a plus b, then the result will be a squared minus b squared. This is particularly helpful when you have square roots in your f of x. So for example, if you have f of x just equal to square root of x, then as I said before, your f of x plus h will be square root of x plus h. Then to get rid of the square roots, you can somehow multiply this by its conjugate. So this just means substituting in this minus sign with this plus sign. So if you do that, you have difference between squares form. This one is a and this one is b. And the result will be a squared minus b squared. And basically the square root and the squared cancels out. This left with you x plus h minus x. Then this 2x cancels out and leaves you with an h only. This h can then cancel out with the h in the numerator. This h can then cancel out with h at the denominator. And then you're basically done your work. You substitute x equals 0 afterwards, and you can find your derivative. And the third one is common denominator. This works well if you have fractions in your function. So for example, you have 1 over x plus h minus 1 over x. So for the first principle questions, you don't want to have two fractions minus together. You need to somehow work in your numerator. So you can have h appear in the numerator and cancel out the h in the denominator. So how you're going to do that is you multiply the first one by x on the top and bottom. So you don't change anything. You basically multiply by 1 here. And the second one by x plus h. If you do that, the denominator will be the same. And then you can safely add the two fractions together. But beware, there's a minus sign here. So it will be actually x minus h. And here you can actually cancel out the x and the minus x here. And this leaves you with a minus h on the numerator. This can then cancel out with the h on the denominator. Okay, after the techniques, let's now do an example question together. Find the derivative of f of x equals to 2 over x using the first principle, 4 marks. The first principle question will usually be 4 to 6 marks, so if you know how to do this type of questions, it's very worth it in your tests. And these questions are basically using the same structure, you just need to follow it. So first principle, we just write the formula here. You don't need to write a formula here, but I prefer to write it. But anyway, let's just substituting the f of x and f of x plus h. So this one is f of x plus h. You just replace the x here with x plus h and minus your f of x given in the question. I also pull out the 1 of h in front to save me space because I don't want to write a double fraction here. And now, because there are fractions involved, I will get these two into a common denominator so I can add them up. First one, I will multiply the top and the bottom by x, so I multiply 1 doesn't change anything. The second one, I will multiply the top and the bottom by x plus h. I also take out 2 because it's a common factor here, and it basically doesn't do anything to your working steps. So I just don't want to write it every time. I just take it out in front of the bracket. And now you can merge these two fractions together. Beware there's a minus sign here, and you have x minus h, and over this thing. And then you can see the x and the minus x, this thing will cancel out. And then you're left with this. Next slide. This is the result from our last slide. And now you can see you can cancel this h and this h here. That's all you want to do in the first principle question. And now there's only this h with the x here in the denominator. It's not on its own, so you don't need to worry about it. You can just let h go to 0. So this one becomes a 0. And then you multiply this x with this x, gives x squared. So the final answer is the derivative of the function is minus 2 over x squared. And although you have done this question, it's a very good idea to check your answers. And one of the good thing about first principle questions is that you can always check your answer. Just use simple power rule. So let's check it. The original function is 2 over x, which we can write it as 2 times x to the power of negative 1. As you know, negative power just means it's on the denominator, and it's 2 over x to the power of 1. So if you move it up, you have a minus 1 here. And then you just use the power rule. So you bring the minus 1 down here, and the minus 1 to the power. So minus 1 is minus 2, and the minus sign goes in front. Minus the power, you bring it down again, and you see you get the same answer, minus 2 over x squared.